Dzień dobry. Jak się macie? Fajnie? Dobrze. Mówicie po angielsku? Tak? Dobrze, dobrze. My name's Johnny and I'm here to represent Red Frogs Poland. But before I start, I want to tell you a little story. And one night, I decided to take a shortcut through the forest. It was about 11 o'clock at night, and as you can imagine, the forest is not a good place to be. So I was walking quite quickly. As I come towards the edge of the forest meets a road. And as I was walking down the road, I noticed a car was following me very slowly. And I thought, this is not good, this is not dobrze. So I look at the car, and on the left-hand side, I look in the window, and there's two young guys with shaven heads. And they start to look at me, and I get a little bit nervous, so I start to speed up. And the car starts to speed up. Eventually, the car stops. A guy jumps out, and he starts screaming Polish at me. I'm like, nie rozumiem, and I run for my life. Now, in front of me, I can see my apartment. And I think if I can just get to my apartment, I will live another day. Now, I don't know how I did this, but I outran the car. It was like the world slowed down, but I kept running. It was like I was the hero from my favorite action film. And I run through the gate, and I think these guys are not catching me. I look over my shoulder, I look back, but then I trip over the pavement. In a second, I went from hero to zero. At this point, the gate flies open, and the biggest guy I've ever seen in my life comes running through. He reaches for his pocket, and he pulls out a gun. He points the gun at my head, and he shouts, "Police, police, police." Now, in my panic, you can imagine how I feel at this point. I throw my hands up, and I think, say something quickly. Now, I meant to shout, "I don't speak English." Sorry, I meant to shout, "I don't speak Polish." But instead, I shouted, "I don't speak English." Quite a story. Now, what I learned from that night is I made two life choices. The first thing is now I go running regularly. I've realized I can run far faster than I've ever imagined. And the second thing, after spending 2 years in Poland, I finally decided to take up Polish lessons. Now, that clearly is an example that even in a bad situation, sometimes positive change can come out of it. So the title of my message today is Be the Change. Now, the fact of the matter is, all of us want change. We want change in our life. We want change in our finance, our career, our education, even in Poland. But the truth of the matter is, change starts with you. Gandhi, one of the world's most influential leaders, said, to see the change, you need to be the change. So, what about red frogs? Well, to tell you about red frogs, I need to tell you about my friend called Andy. Now, Andy, 14 years ago, he's from Australia. He went to a week called Schoolies Week. And what Schoolies Week is, it's when young people leave school at the age of 16. For 1 week, they go to the beach and they party. They party like they've never partied before. Nearly 70,000 of them. And along the beach, every hotel, there's about 500 young people in each hotel and 2 security guards. Now, what Andy realized after a few days, sure, people were having a lot of fun, but behind the scenes, there were some more serious things. There were people struggling with alcohol and drug problems. There was sexual assault and violence, and even thoughts of depression and suicide. So Andy thought, I need to help. So one night he decides to walk up to one of these hotels. He tries to get in, but there's 2 great big security guards. And they say, where do you think you're going? And he walks back. And then he has an idea. He decides that he would go to the shop and he buys a packet of Red Frogs jellies. He goes back up to the hotel, sees the same 2 security guards, and they said, what do you want? And he said, do you want a red frog? And they were like, oh yeah. They took one, and in he walked. And for the next few nights, what Andy did, he started to knock on every door, and they'd say, who is it? Is it security? He'd say, no, it's red frogs. And they'd say, oh, red frogs? Come in. And he started to give them water and red frogs, and he found he could really make a difference. At the end of the week, Andy spoke to the hotel manager and said, would you like some help next year? Maybe I could bring a few friends. Well, next year, Andy did bring a few friends. In fact, 300 of them in total. Now, that was 14 years ago. Let's look at 2011. In 2011, we are now pretty much in every university in Australia. Last year, we did events for more than 300,000 students. But we're not only in Australia. Now we're also in the UK, France, South Africa, New Zealand, and Canada. And most importantly, now Poland. And what do? Well, we do a lot of things. First of all, we go to student parties. We party with them. But we also give them water, we give them food to help with the effects of alcohol. We've also got a walk-home service. So sometimes if students have had too much to drink, they can phone and we can actually help walk them home. One of our most popular services is pancakes. Anytime student can email us, and what we'll do is we will go in and cook pancakes for free. Can you believe that? Also in Australia, we've got a 24/7 student hotline. So students can phone up around the clock and they can request things from pancakes, but they can also phone in with more serious issues, such as drug problems and thoughts of suicide. So at this moment in time, you're probably thinking, so what? It's a nice project, it's a nice idea, how does it relate to you? Well, you see, the thing in life, if you want to be successful, if you want to start any business, you need to start with the question, not how can I make money, but how can I make a difference? Steve Jobs, one of the most visionary, pioneering leaders of our generation, said this quote. He said, being the richest man in the cemetery counts for nothing. What really, really matters is going home and going to bed at night and saying, today I have done something wonderful. So the question is, how can you be the change? Well, the first thing, we need to start with the small. Now for Andy and Red Frogs, he just started with what he had in his hand. He had a red frog jelly. He wasn't the best communicator, he wasn't the most confident person, planner or strategizer, but he said, I just have to give it a try. For me, when I had the idea to bring red frogs to Poland, all I had was a student calendar. And I thought, if I take this calendar in front of people, maybe, just maybe, somebody will like the idea. Maybe if I speak to enough businesses, maybe if I speak to enough universities, maybe someone will like this. I like the story of a guy called Kyle McDonald, who in the year 2005, he was sat at home, and he was feeling a little bit sorry for himself. And he said, if only I could have my own house. But the problem is, I don't have enough money, I haven't got a great job, this is impossible. And when he sat on his chair, he looks in front of him, and he finds one red paperclip. And suddenly he has an idea. He thinks, if I can trade this one paperclip for something better, maybe like a pen. And maybe if I trade the pen for something better, and I keep trading and trading and trading, maybe, just maybe, I will get my house. True story, 12 months later, after 14 trades, Kyle got a 2-story house in Kipling, America. And what did it cost him? One red paperclip. Quite a story. Well, what can we learn from this? Well, first of all, Kyle focused on what he had, not what he didn't have. He focused on his strengths, not his weaknesses. You know, I love a quote from Mother Teresa. And Mother Teresa, she helped the needy, she helped the poor, she helped thousands and thousands of people. And one day, one of Mother Teresa's closest friends came to her, and she said, Mother Teresa, I feel so upset. She said, there are thousands, there are even millions of people in the world that we need to help. And sometimes I feel so frustrated, I can only help one person at a time. Sometimes it feels like that one person is just like a drop in the ocean. And Mother Teresa said to her, what you need to know is that it is the drops that make up the ocean. To do something significant, you need to start with the small. You need to focus on the individual. The fact of the matter is, every one of you today, you are unique. You have unique talents and abilities. You need to focus on your strengths. You don't want to compare yourself with the person next to you. It's not about changing the world, but it's about changing your world. So my next point is, don't listen to the critics. Now, I am from Liverpool, and I'm pretty proud of that. And my favorite football team, the best team in the world, is Liverpool FC. Now, I remember the first game I went to when I was a small child, and I was really excited. I had my drink and my snacks, and next to me was a really big guy. And I couldn't believe it, because in one hand he had fritki and a hot dog, and in the other hand he had an extra large pivo and a donut. Quite a balancing act. And as the game started, in the first 10 minutes, Liverpool were terrible. And I could see the guy next to me. He was getting more angry and more angry. He put his drink down, and he started to shout, and he started to scream. He started to use more swear words than I ever thought were possible. And he was shouting, "I could do better than you." I looked over at his big belly, and I thought, I would love to see you try. But what I noticed that day is that the players on the field, they didn't listen to the fat guy next to me. In fact, they didn't listen to the other 40,000 people in the stadium. The only guy they listened to was a short Spanish guy on the side of the football field. You see, he was the coach, he was the manager, and that day, that was the only voice that mattered to them. You see, in life, if you want to be successful, sometimes you can't listen to the critics. But you have to listen to the coach. I remember having the idea to bring red frogs to Poland, and a lot of people told me, this is impossible. It sounds like a good idea, but to be honest, if you're doing something for free, you want to help people, I don't think they'll believe it. A lot of businesses said, it's not possible. But what I did is I went and saw my coach. My coach is a lady called Aggie. Aggie, at the age of 18, started her own business here in Krakow against all the voices of the critics. And today is one of the most successful language schools here in Krakow. And she heard my idea, and Aggie said to me, I absolutely love your idea. I think it sounds almost impossible. It's going to be an incredible challenge, but you can do this. I think this idea has the potential to change Poland. And I left, and I finally realized, you know what? I can do this. I can give it a try. You see, in life, sometimes you've got to listen to the coach. A coach will not always tell you it's going to be easy. They will not always tell you that you're doing a good job, but they will keep you going even when the world wants to point and criticize. And one last thing I've realized about critics is no one ever remembers critics. No one ever builds statues of critics outside football stadiums. But if you go to Liverpool Football Club, you will see a statue of one of the greatest coaches of all time. You see, a good coach, a great coach, is remembered forever. My next point is, if you want a big life, then you need a big problem. Now, let me ask you a quick question, very simple question. How many of you got a mobile phone? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, now I can't see anybody, but I'm kind of guessing everybody's got their hand up. Okay? Now, I'm sure every one of you have heard of Nokia. Nokia is the world's largest supplier of mobile phones. But the interesting thing about Nokia is Nokia comes from Finland, and Finland is a very small country. In fact, it has a population of just 5 million people. And the question is, how can something so successful come out of something so small? Well, you see, Finland had a problem. Its villages were separated by mountain ranges and glaciers. And it meant communication was incredibly difficult, if not impossible. But out of this great problem, out of this great challenge, came the world's biggest supplier of mobile phones today. Quite a story. Now, in my life, I've faced quite a lot of problems. When I went to university, I fell into this party lifestyle. I surrounded myself with the wrong people. And in fact, when I left university, I came away with a drug addiction. A drug addiction which spent most of my days taking drugs. I lost a lot of my friends. I lost contact with my family. It seemed like I had no hope in my life. But then one day, I had a chance encounter with the organization which started Red Frogs in the UK. They got me the help I needed, they got my life back on track, and that is why I am here today. Now, if I can tell you about my problems, I've learned two things. When a problem comes, first of all, you have a decision. Do you give up, or do you get up? You see, if you decide to get up, you still keep going. You face the problem head on. You don't listen to the critics. And even if you get knocked down, you promise to get back up again. And the second thing I've learned about problems is if you want a big life, of course, you need a big problem. Now, when we first brought Red Frogs to Poland, which was only a few months ago, I had a meeting with Agihar University. And after the first meeting, there was me and Marta, who's at the back there, and they said to us, you can now have access to 35,000 students. We walked out and we said, amazing. However, at the time, in terms of Red Frogs in Poland, there were 2 of us. Now, you don't need to be a mathematician to work out that 35,000 students and 2 volunteers is a big problem. But 2 months later, we have put on events for nearly 4,000 students. We now have 20 volunteers who regularly volunteer weekly. Has it been easy? Absolutely not. But I do know the bigger the problem, the bigger the life. The bigger the challenge, the bigger the person you will become. My next point is failure is a must-have. What often stops us from doing anything in life is the fear of failure. But the truth is, you can't do anything in life unless you have failure. In fact, you can't have success. People who avoid success also avoid failure, because you can't succeed without having failure along the way. You know, the future of Red Frogs, I don't know. Maybe it will be a great success. Maybe it will explode across Poland and the surrounding countries. Maybe I will fail. But I do know if I don't succeed the first time, I will get back up and I will keep trying and I will not give up. I love a quote from Thomas Edison, who you know invented the light bulb. Now, Thomas Edison, he tried thousands and thousands of times to try and invent the light bulb. And one day, a young reporter went to his house. And he said, Mr. Edison, do you not see yourself as a failure? 1,000 times you have tried to create a light bulb, and 1,000 times you have failed. He said, young man, I do not see myself as a failure. He says, I am a success. In fact, I have been successful 1,000 times to find a way how not to make a light bulb. And it was shortly after that, as we know, the light bulb is with us today. And I want to leave you with one last thought. I heard the other day that if you live to the age of 75, you will live for 657,000 hours. Not a lot. Now, obviously, those hours turn into days, those days turn into months, and those months turn into years. Now, if you are an average person, and I'm sure there's no average people here today, but an average person will spend 3 years of their life stuck in traffic. Now, that is a long traffic jam. You will also spend 9 years of your life watching TV, and you will spend 11 years of your life surfing the internet. Now, you've spent maybe 4 or 5 hours here today. And here's my challenge. What will you go away with? Will you think today has been a nice conference and maybe there's a few nice things and I learned to build a big tower with a marshmallow on top? Or maybe, just maybe, when you go home, instead of switching on the TV, instead of turning on the internet, maybe you will get out a blank piece of paper. And at the top of the blank piece of paper, you will start with the two questions. How can I make a difference? And how can I be the change that I want to see? Dziękuję bardzo.